Hello everyone, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, depending on which part of the world you are. I am here in Sydney, Australia, and it's a really beautiful day today. So welcome to the channel, and I hope you guys are doing great. Now today we'll be talking about a tourist refund scheme, TRS, which is run by the Australian government. Now the name can be a little bit confusing, so we're going to clear out some of the confusions, and along the way I'm going to give you some tips that you may find very useful if you're interested into this scheme. So the confusion comes because it says tourist, but in reality anyone, whether you are a citizen living in Australia permanently or a short-term or long-term visa holders or just a regular tourist visiting Australia for a few days, anyone can actually avail this scheme. So the first question is, where can you claim this refund? Okay, now before we talk about where, let's talk about what exactly is TRS. What exactly is this tourist refund scheme? Now, if you are a tourist visiting a country, what usually happens is that you end up making a lot of purchases. And when you make a purchase, you pay a certain amount to the government as tax, right? Goods and services tax, GST, what is usually 10% of the purchase price for an item. So the Australian government is happy to give you back this GST amount, okay, for the purchases that you make during your stay in Australia. So where can you claim this refund for your shopping in Australia? The answer is at your port of departure before you leave, because those officials have to cite these items. They have to make sure that you purchase these items and you are taking them overseas with you. Let's say that you are flying from Sydney to Singapore. So where can you claim it? You can claim only at your port of departure, which is Sydney Airport, before you leave. Once you leave, you cannot claim it. So before you leave at Sydney Airport, you can claim refund for your shopping. Now, of course, you can initiate the process beforehand, before going to your port of departure. That there is a website, I'm going to put a link in the description, where you can give information of your purchases. And that website will generate a QR code that you can take to the officials, to the TRS office, and those officials will scan the QR code and information of your purchases will be populated straight away, which can of course expedite your claim, expedite your process. So yes, you can initiate the process, but you cannot lodge the claim. You can only lodge the claim only at your port of departure, and that is before you leave. Okay, so this is criteria number one, because those officials have to cite these items. They have to make sure that these items are with you and you are taking them overseas. Okay, so citing is very important, criteria number one. But there is still some other things you have to consider. ABN, amount. In Australia, every retailer has an ABN. Whoever is doing business in Australia, they have an ABN. So when you make a purchase from a retailer, that invoice will have their ABN number. Okay, now the threshold amount is $300 for a particular ABN. Now, one of the mistakes that I made was when I purchased some items from Amazon, right? Because when I made like purchase of smaller value items, I thought that because I'm buying it from Amazon, the invoices that I will get from Amazon will have the same ABN number, but I was wrong. Amazon is a marketplace, and as such, there are lots of sellers in the marketplace, and those sellers have different ABN. Okay, now unless that amount obviously is more than $300, if those are smaller items and the ABN is different, you cannot claim it. Now, one other thing I did, and luckily it ended up a good experience, is when I purchased those items of smaller value from Myers. Now, Myers happen to be yet another marketplace where there are lots of sellers. But despite the fact that there are different sellers, the invoices that I got had the same ABN. Now they have the same ABN number in those invoices. Those smaller purchases actually ended up counting towards the threshold amount of $300. Okay, so if you have to make a series of purchase of smaller items, smaller value items, then do not buy it from Amazon. That would be my advice. Buy it from a marketplace where the ABN will be the same in the invoice. Now, talking about invoice, what invoice the TRS officials will accept? Only the original copies. If it is a paper invoice, only the original copies are the ones that they will accept. If it's a duplicate, if it's a photocopy, they're not going to take it. If it's a digital invoice, you have to make sure the tax invoice, the phrasing is there. Otherwise, again, they're not going to accept it. So for paper invoices, has to be original copies, and for the digital invoices, the phrase tax invoice has to be there. So we covered about where, that is before you leave at your port of departure, and also we covered about ABN and the threshold, $300. You have to buy for smaller purchases, you have to buy from a business retailer where they will give you an invoice with the same ABN number. If the ABN is different for smaller purchases, those smaller purchases, unfortunately, not gonna count towards your threshold amount of $300. Okay, now there is a third criteria that you have to match: time. How long in advance can you make a purchase? 60 days. Let's say that you are flying tomorrow and you made a purchase during the Boxing Day sales last year. Now that the 60 days threshold has passed, well, unfortunately, you cannot claim that amount. Only if that purchase has been made within the 60 days of your departure, you can claim the GST amount for your shopping. Otherwise, you cannot claim it. So time, 60 days. So we covered about where, we covered about the amount, the GST, like the ABN and the amount, and also the time. Now let's talk about some other stuff. Concession. Now obviously you don't have to worry about concession if you're just a regular tourist. If you are here for just a few days and you are going overseas, you don't have to worry about this one. But if you are coming back, let's say that you are a citizen, at the end of your trip, you will come back to Australia. Now, you have a concession amount of only up to $900 that you can claim the GST for only up to $900. So if you end up, let's say that you buy a MacBook, which obviously is quite expensive, or let's say that you buy a digital camera. Some of these digital cameras are very, very expensive, but you can claim only up to $900 if you come back with the digital camera or that MacBook or whatever the other thing that you are claiming your GST for, if that amount is only up to $900. If it is more, you cannot claim it. You have to give it back. Okay, but for clothing, you can get all of it. Like let's say that you purchase 10 suits. I'm just giving you an example. And those suits cost you about $1,000 each. So you are claiming GST for $10,000. But for clothing, it's okay. You can claim whatever you want. No issues at all. Like I had no issues whatsoever. But if you are claiming like electronics or some other items that you are intending to bring back, then only it is allowed to claim up to $900 of GST. Anything more than that, you have to declare it in your incoming passenger card, and you have to give back the GST that you claimed. Okay, so these are some of the things that you have to remember to successfully lodge your claim, and I hope this helps. Now, the most important thing which I already discussed is the smaller amount. Do not buy it from Amazon. That is my only advice. Find an alternative to Amazon, a marketplace alternative to Amazon, where in those invoices, tax invoice tracing will be there and the ABN will be exactly the same. Okay. So as long as you can manage these things, there'll be no issues lodging your claim, and you will get it back in your nominated account in just a few days. Okay, so I hope this helps, and thank you for listening, and I'll catch up with you on the next one. Bye for now.